Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. I can't wait. Like next week, we're going to actually go live with this on the podcast. So don't worry. I'll tell you more about that as we get closer to that day. But first, let me introduce you formally to this week's panel. It may feel like a marathon when you write a book, but a marathoner can rest when they cross the finish line. When a business author reaches the publication date, they can't rest. No. Now they have to shift from writing to marketing their business book because publishing was not the goal. A step that's often skipped is the book launch, which overlaps with the end of the writing phase and the start of the marketing phase. And I love this part. I coach entrepreneurs to build a launch team of likely prospects and referral partners, get 50 or more Amazon reviews, and create a pipeline for the author's offers. Now, don't just jump from writing your book to paying for PR services before your book looks like a success on Amazon. Reviews are social proof, and conversations with prospects will lead to new revenue opportunities. You can reach out to schedule a complimentary book launch brainstorming session. Complete the form at robbiesamuels.com/book launch support. Again, that's robbiesamuels.com/book launch support, and we can get started from there. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our panel of authors who will be joining me in a moment for a frank conversation about the ups and downs of the author journey. Biba Pédron wrote M.D.R, the winning formula for a successful life. Luck does not exist. You create it. This book will show you and even prove to you that anything is indeed possible, even your wildest dreams. Nothing is impossible. Brenda Reynolds wrote TBD, To Be Determined, Leading with Clarity and Confidence in Uncertain Times, where she shares information, strategies, and real-life examples that will grow your confidence and hone your leadership skills. Julia Freer Goldstein wrote Beyond the Green Team, Aligning Internal and External Communication to Advance Corporate Sustainability. A key message is that the way you communicate sustainability, first within your company and then with customers, investors, and other stakeholders, is the essential foundation of any successful green initiative. Let's give a warm welcome to our panelists, Biba, Brenda, and Julia. Biba, we're going to come right to you with this first question. I want to know a little more about why you wrote the book. In particular, who did you write the book for? Who is the ideal reader that you had in mind?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to share what we have to say and in order to help people. The audience for the book is actually the same as the audience for my business, because I'm a business and mindset expert. I help mainly women entrepreneurs to grow their business much faster and with the visibility and how to bring them a lot of visibility. So, for example, I help them to do summit or to speak at summit, to speak on stage and something. And a book, as you mentioned, the book M.D.R, the book, I help them because a book is a marketing tool. So I teach them on how to write a book in order to have more visibility, more credibility. But we know that in marketing, the formula of a successful business is 80% mindset and 20% marketing. So before we can do anything about marketing, that's the reason why I wrote this book. This is 100% mindset. Because I show in everything that I do, and my mission is actually my motto is I do what I want, when I want, where I want, with who I want, making sure that money is never an issue. But that you can do that only if you have the right mindset. So I really teach them on how to do that, how to use the power of having a business to control your life.
That's
And
brilliant.
I always say to people that you can do whatever you want. And I show it with my story and I show it with the book. So I work mainly with women, but really it's also for men who wants to have a positive mindset and an
Thank you.
XXL mindset. That I prone that everything is possible, and I show and I prove it.
Brilliant. So, Brenda, same question to you. Tell us a little bit about who you wrote the book for. Who's the ideal reader?
The ideal reader for TBD is business leaders. I mean, the job description of any business leader is a person who manages us through uncertainty. We wouldn't need leaders if we didn't have uncertainty at every turn. And so it's for that busy business leader who's not only navigating this change in their organization, maybe it's a reorganization, maybe it's a reduction in force, but they're managing themselves through it too. So the book looks at how do you manage yourself through it while you're managing others through that change and finding the confidence you need. It's got tools in it that I have simplified for folks. It's for that busy business leader who needs some help, but needs a book they can read on that round trip flight or listen to it on Audible and get what they need to make a difference.
Thank you very much. Julia, you've penned more than one book. What did you have in mind for this book when you were starting to write it? Who was the audience?
Yeah, for this book, I am talking to people who work in manufacturing companies. And I define that fairly broadly as a company that makes some type of physical product to sell to other businesses, to sell to individuals, what have you. And those people could be in a variety of different roles. I would say they could be leading marketing efforts. They could be leading sustainability efforts. They could be in charge of EH&S, which is employee health and safety. They are the ones who are likely to be the champions for sustainability at their company, or they certainly want to be. And they want their company to be more of a leader in that area. And sometimes they may be a bit at a loss on how to do that because there are various obstacles inside their company, inside their industry, and they're looking for guidance.
I have a question now. I'm going to go back to Brenda first. I'm curious, Brenda, take me back to when you were first working on this book and you were thinking about the success of the book. What were the metrics that you were going to be keeping track of? Not now that you know some things, but what did you early on think was going to be important for this book to be a success?
Metrics? If anyone other than my family bought the book, Robbie. I mean, this is my first pancake. I've learned a lot from it. And I think it's a mistake a lot of authors make, just to your earlier point, not thinking about any metrics beyond, gosh, will any other human being read what I just spent all of this time writing? I was so focused on the publishing outcome that metrics were secondary. Early success for me was remembering a time when in second grade, I told my second grade teacher, Mrs. Wolf, that I wanted to be a novelist when I grew up, and feeling the pressure forever about writing a book and just finally fulfilling the promise to Mrs. Wolf. That was my number one metric. I've learned a lot since then, and we can talk more about that as we go, but metrics were not on my mind.
That phrase you just used, this is my first pancake. Wow, I felt that. I felt that viscerally. Oh yeah, I actually felt like I had to write a second book because I learned so much in the process of writing the first book. There had to be a second book in me. Then I accidentally published a third book, and now I've just committed to writing a fourth because that's just what happens. But thank you for that, Brenda. All right, Biba, if you can just join us and share for you, what were you thinking about as success early on?
Yeah, actually, I wrote my first book in 2006, the very first one, and I had no idea, and I did all the mistake that you can do when you write your first book. And I will publish next month the number 10. So, but this one about the mindset is really my baby, because for me, most of the other books are about marketing and inspiration or collaborative books, but the mindset for me, it's really my baby. So I don't know which metrics I had really, but I knew that there is a need with everything that I do with the clients, with one-on-one coaching, or I have a club for women or something like that. I saw all the problem that they have, of the blockage that they have and everything. And I knew that the way that I live my life, I say, okay, you can tell me no how often that you want, but every no will be a booster for me. So I really thought about that when I wrote the book. I said, I want more people to know that there's another way to live, another way to control your life. And if everybody tells you you can't, or it's not for you, or who do you think you are, then if they don't have the right environment around them, I show you that there's other people, and they can meet another group of people where they will tell them everything is possible. It won't be easy. You will get obstacles, but it's possible.
So getting the book published was important, getting this word out there. Were there other metrics of success you were tracking? Sales, reviews, media connections, business development? Like, what were you paying attention to for the second book?
It's more about the impact. It's the sales in a way, because some people don't have enough money to buy our product or services. So having the book, it's a smaller price to share the message to more people. So the more people we can share, the more people will buy the book, or even share the book with others if they don't have the money to pay for it. But the more we can impact them. That was the most important thing for me, to put the word out on the mindset on, yes, it's possible. You can control your life.
Awesome. Hey, Julia, you and I first connected through a community of writers,
Yes.
which feels like ages and ages ago, back in 2017, I'm guessing. And that was when you were first working on your first book. Is that right?
Yes. So I discovered the Nonfiction Authors Association in 2017 when I was working on my first book. And then, this latest one is, this isn't the latest one, because I have one that came out in April 2024. But Beyond the Green, see, I'm with you, Robbie, when you were talking about, well, I had a first book. And when you write that, they're like, what about your next book? You're thinking, wait a minute, I just wrote a book. Okay, I'm not ready.
Right.
And then you get addicted to it anyway. So Beyond the Green Team is my third book.
Yeah.
But,
So when you were first writing that first book, what were
yes.
the metrics of success back then? What did you think would be successful to get this book out into the world?
Well, it's interesting. I remember reading some statistic that the average self-published book gets fewer than 250 copies sold ever. And so my first thing is like, okay, I want to get beyond that. I want to get beyond that 250 so I can at least be above average. Now, it's interesting with Beyond the Green Team. I actually had a note to myself not to over-focus on sales. Because as authors, we can look, how are we doing on our Amazon rankings? Are we, how many books are we selling? Can we get number one in our category? All that. I said, wait a minute, this is to get that message out, and it's a business book. So how can I reach as many people as possible? And that means giving away a lot of copies. And so to some degree, the success is if I put something out there and say, here's what you need to do to get a free copy, a free digital copy, how many people are taking me up on that? That's a measure of success, not just how many copies is it selling on a particular site or in a particular channel.
I think a lot of people who are new to the author journey have a misunderstanding or a misconception that you make money from the book. And everyone's shaking their head right now.
Robbie, years ago, I said the consulting arm of my business supports the book writing arm and the book publishing arm.
So, the individual sales for me, I do focus on in the first month when we're trying to do, good ranking, get the reviews in, and we can talk more about reviews later because that's my love. But I am always curious how it's evolved over time. So I think, Julia, you just gave me the example, initially this was just to publish it, try to sell more than 250 copies. And then now you really have a whole strategy for how to get the book into people's hands, the right people. Brenda, how has your thinking evolved around this book is now a success because?
Oh my gosh, this book is now a success because it opened up so many doors. It opened up a door for me to do a TEDx talk on navigating transition fog, which is one of the topics in the book. It opened up doors for me to say yes to speaking engagements like the International Organization of Development or the International Society of Organization Development and Change, which took me to a really incredible stage in Beijing, China. It has gotten me on podcasts like this one, where I've made some interesting connections with folks even in the podcasting world. And one of them has recently resulted in a partnership arrangement with a podcaster from Italy who has a program she'd like me to contribute to and an online product she'd like me to continue working with her on. So I could keep going. It's a differentiator and a door opener. And that's what I realized was the really big success.
It's kind of hard when you're first starting to actually visualize all those possibilities when you're just sweating the details of getting the book up, you know, whatever on KDP, for instance, you know, like you're just like the file's not loading right. Like it's hard to imagine the next possibility around the corner. And that's partly why I like to talk about these differences from where we start to sort of what becomes possible later for those people who are listening, who are stuck in that end phase where the book doesn't quite exist, but it's been written. Biba, tell us a little bit for you. How has this shifted?
Yeah, I also teach people on how to write a book. And I always tell them when we start working that the book will give them an instant credibility and more visibility. And it's interesting because I teach them, I coach them about it, but they don't really realize it until the book is launched. And then I said, you will see overnight, people will see you differently. So definitely a book is a great marketing tool for entrepreneurs because you will get more visibility, more credibility. And then when you get more credibility, as Brenda said, that's opened a lot of doors. And I got media on it. I was contacted by the Forbes magazine in France. I was contacted by the World's Leader magazine and everything. So, and the more credibility you have, the more visibility you have, the more visibility you have, the more credibility you have. So it's really open doors, but it's very important because most people write a book, they don't know what they will sell at the end of the books. And you have to know before you even start the book, what's your funnel, what you will sell after, what's your offer. And people write a book and then they launch the book for a few weeks and then they don't speak about it. They don't put it in the funnel, they don't promote it, they don't mention it. A book that you don't sell, it's the book that you don't speak, it's a book that don't sell. And the book that you don't sell, it's the book that can't impact. So people have to understand that even before they start, and I guess that all of us, we did a mistake on our first book, but before you even write the book, start the book, you have to know all of this. What do you want? What's your goals? Is it just for an association and you want just to give away your book, or do you want to use your book to sell your services? So it's really what you do and not just the book. And as Julia mentioned, of course, we don't make money, or you mentioned it, Ruby, I don't know. We don't make money with the book. We make money with what we sell after the book. But most of the people don't even know what they will sell after the book. They don't even mention it on the book. And of course, it's not working.
Yeah. So Biba, we're definitely going to dive more into how a book is related to your business growth and your business strategies and the mistakes we all make along the way. That's one of the first questions I ask a prospective client who's talking about a launch. Even if they haven't written the book yet, or if they have written the book, I'm like, tell me what this connection is. And they're always like, before we get there though, I got to talk about reviews. And I will start by just saying why I focus on reviews so much. And I haven't heard a lot of people talking about this, but I think that reviews are sort of a missing piece between the publication and the marketing. And it's social proof on the book sales page on Amazon. And even if you're selling in other venues, Amazon's still where people are going to go to double check to see who you are and what's this all about. And I find it really interesting that a lot of publishers, their job is to publish your book. So when they talk to their authors, they say your publication day, that's the release day. Everything has to happen on that day. And they basically make the author a little frenetic because there's so much to do. And then they talk to me and I'm like, oh, no. Like your launch day and your publication day, they're not the same day. Like your publication day is November 1st and your launch day is 3 weeks later. Like you can play with that, and you can push your launch day into January if you need to. Like, oh, you don't want to have the paperback come out at the same time? That's fine. Have it come out later. It's another reason to talk to everyone. So I just like take the pressure off. But I really think that it's not just getting reviews, it's getting reviews from likely prospects and referral partners, or else we're not creating that pipeline that Biba was just talking about. So with that whole context maybe in mind, I'm curious about the process you all took around getting reviews. Have you thought about reviews? Was it even part of the plan? And I'm actually going to look over. I saw one of you had a good number. Oh, it was TBD. So Brenda, I'm going to go to you. So go ahead and unmute and join us. But yeah, we'll get you back in here. So Brenda, you've got 32 reviews and 34 ratings. So just to clarify, ratings are the stars. so people can leave you a star rating without leaving a written review. So one thing I will say, two actually, one is your ratio between ratings and reviews is very high, and that's amazing. I have definitely seen people with 200 plus ratings and less than 10 reviews. And I'm always like, what happened there? It's a little funny business. The other thing is getting over 20 reviews that are written takes a really thoughtful process. So you got 32, and some of them are still coming in. So tell us a little bit about how you thought about this.
Well, I had coaching on it, to be honest with you, Robbie. And so I reached out to folks. You learn this along the way, the importance of what you said earlier. Your launch date and your publishing date are not necessarily the same. I've published a second book since, and I still haven't learned that lesson. The third book is underway. I will learn that lesson. There will be a much bigger gap between publication and launch. To do the thing you're talking about, I reached out to folks, inviting them to do a review, did some follow up on that. I did a book launch event, which encouraged people to do so. And then I try to remember, just any time I'm putting the book out into the world, to ask someone. It's not easy. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. I went to a high school mini reunion recently, and one of my friends from high school said, "Oh my gosh, I love your book. It's this, this, and this." And I'm like, that would be a great review. So you've read it and that's your feeling? Have you done a review? She said, "Oh no." I said, "Would you do a review?" So it's kind of reminding people, because it is asking them to take that extra step, but planting the seed, getting some in. And I'm flattered you're calling me out, Robbie, because I feel like I am still hell-bent to get to 50. I really want to hit 50. And so I'm going to have to put some more concerted effort on that. The campaign you ran recently helped me to invigorate a few new reviews, which was terrific. So just being mindful of it. And what I have found is you have to be willing to ask.
And remind and follow up and politely nudge and polite persistence and ask again and make it easy and follow up. And you know what's awesome? When people set the intention to write a review for us, and they actually do, they feel great, we feel great. If we just ask once, it becomes this to-do item that never gets done, and they start to feel kind of bad about it, and then they don't want to actually see us because they feel bad, like you're going to ask about it and they haven't done it yet. So do what you can. That friend who had that really great review, maybe even just draft a version of what you heard and say, here's something you can work with. Feel free to edit. This is what I heard, but here's how you actually post it. And really hand hold people through the steps, because then they're going to feel great about it.
I have to get Leslie off the hook. Leslie, thank you. Leslie did it with no coaching from me. She did it.
Shout out. We need more people like that in the world. My 3 books have collectively around 650 Amazon reviews. I'm an indie author. I don't have a mega following. So I'm really, really proud of those numbers, and they stay on the book sales page. So Biba, you work with people around books. Has reviews been part of your process for your books, your authors' books? How do you think about this?
It's interesting because I'm very good to get testimonials from my coaching and my services. I'm good to ask testimonials for people when I launch a book, and I ask everybody to take a picture of them and to do like a testimonials that I put on social media. But since I don't use Amazon that much, I completely forget about the review on Amazon. And in the events that we did recently, I was like, wow, that's true. I forget all the time about the review. So it was a good reminder. And since I'm launching the next book in November, I will include that in the process, because the same people who knows us, so they can find the pictures of the people and the testimonials on my website or on social media. But people who don't know us, who do some research on Amazon, they don't see that. So it was not part of my process, but it will be. And thanks to you, Ruby.
That's one more author I brought back from the edge and brought into the world of reviews. And it is true that we have to remember the worlds that we're selling into may not know us. That's part of the benefit, as Brenda was saying, like of having a book. And Biba, you said like the credibility and how it reaches well beyond our initial circle. I, as a small M media, because I've had a podcast for 8.5 years, when I get pitched guests for my show from podcast placement companies, PR companies, I have to decide who to accept. And I'm very picky. In the old show, only 1 out of 3 guests were men. And it tended to be a guy who wrote a book about networking. And then I'd go to Amazon and there would be no reviews, 3 reviews, 1 written review, 4 rating. And I'm like, wait, they wrote a networking book? Like, what happened here? So that disconnect that you spent money on a PR company to be pitched to me, but you didn't engage your own network. So it's like something we all can do. But if we do it really thoughtfully, it also lends into like what happens business-wise, which, Julie, I'm going to come back to you with this because you've got a handful of reviews on some of your books. Clearly, you have a very targeted audience that benefits from this book. How have you approached reviews and with all your book launches?
It's interesting. Well, with my first one that came out in 2019, they have all these different review sites where they have reviewers. And I spent, I don't know how many hours going through them. Most of them focus on fiction books. And sometimes I would look, I screened for, because I did a search with nonfiction, but sometimes then I go to their site and the reason nonfiction is there is because they have a statement that says, I don't review nonfiction books. So after this huge number of hours screening all of them, found some people, and those people did write reviews. But yeah, it is about the constant follow-up. And I think, and this happens also is relevant, it's relevant for business owners too, is that sometimes we're afraid of bugging people, of saying, hello, we're out here, we can help you with XYZ, and not feel like we're trying too hard or all that. And so I do wish I had more reviews. I think about somebody who actually posted a great review of the book on her website. And I need to go back and say, grab these sentences, please, put them on Amazon, because that's what you need to do. There was somebody who had a template for asking people about reviews to make it easier. And I went and bought her template, which it was $10. It was not a big investment. And I sent the template around to people. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They don't care. They don't write reviews. And so I think it's incredible what you have done, Robbie. And it does take a lot of reminders and also reaching out to way more people than you think you need to reach.
You know what? Briefly, I'm going to tell you what I do. I'll give it all away. Okay. So there's 5 phases to a launch. The first one is to figure out who you want to invite to be on your launch team. And you want to lean into it being likely prospects and likely referral partners, people who would be excited about both your book and the offer comes after, or who could tell other people who would be excited about the book and the offers that come after. Don't over-index on friends and family and colleagues, because they're not going to buy anything else from you. They might be very excited you wrote a book and might write your review, but it's not a pipeline. And so that's the first phase. Second phase is to invite them to actually opt in, to set the intention of writing a review and explaining to them what you're asking of them. So you get them to say yes, and then you send them your advanced reader copy. This is phase 3, and you give them 4 prompts to help them write a good review. The prompts are, what's one thing you learned? What's one big takeaway from this book? What's something you're going to do differently because of this book? Share a quote or a line that resonated with you from this book. And who should read this book? If you answer 2 of those prompts, you are going to write a great review. 2 or 3 sentences, don't overthink it, right? You just give them all of that support. And then you collect those reviews via a Google form before the book's published. And when the book is published, after the publication day and before the launch day, is when you guide them through publishing it by sending their review text back to them with all the steps. In all that process, there's reminders and follow-up and reminders. And numbers-wise, if you want 50 reviews by a specific date, let's say by November 1st, we want reviews. You need 150 people signed up a month earlier. And to ask 150 people to say yes to joining your launch team, you probably have to ask about 200 people. So those are your numbers. The thing is, everyone here and everyone listening knows 200 people who would want to help them. It's just a matter of going through your network. And that's the process that I really show people. And I think it's also a mindset that you have to get people aware that they can do this. And as a business owner, to Julia's point, if you're a business owner, these are the people you want to be talking to. So it's not time spent just on the book. It's actually time on business development. So I'm going to shift us off of reviews, though I could stay all day. It's my comfort zone, not yours. I get it. I want to know, though, what else besides reviews was a big challenge. And I'm going to come over to Biba because I'm always curious. Some people love the writing process. Some people, that's the hard part. Some people like the marketing. Some people think that's the hard part. You know, even as we write more books, even when we're no longer afraid of the writing, tell us, Biba, like, was there something in particular about all of this process that was sort of a challenge, something you learned that you had to kind of get help with or, I don't know, overcome?
Well, at first, as I mentioned, probably on the first 3 books, I didn't really know what to sell, how to sell, and I didn't even think about it. So I think that for most of the people, is that the issue is the marketing part, because it's the same that when you start a business, whatever business you start because you have a passion, you have a mission or something, but nobody told you that you have to do the marketing. But whatever business we are in the business of marketing. So it's the exact same thing on books. If you don't promote your book, if you don't mention your book, if you don't mention it on a regular basis, if you don't take the book to do public speaking, because it's a great opportunity, well, you're missing the big part. And as I said before, if you don't sell a book, you don't impact people. Mm-hmm. And the purpose, I guess, for everybody writing a book is we have a knowledge or we have an expertise, we have an experience. We want to help people to go faster and not going through the same story that we had or not going to the same obstacle that we had. So if we don't speak, if we don't know how to speak or how to promote, so people don't like it when I say, well, now we will have to create your funnel. And we actually create the funnel before we finish the book and before we publish the book. And so that's the most of the issue. Then when you understand marketing, that becomes easier because, as you say, you can write a book every 2 months, every 3 months. Now it's even easier with ChatGPT, even if I don't like that part. Even if I teach people on how to write a book in 2 days, I don't use ChatGPT because there's a process to do it. But today, a lot of people write books, Amazon and others say they have so many books. But if you don't do anything with those books, what's the purpose?
Biba, one of the reasons I focus again on reviews is to differentiate you from all the other people out there who are writing books in a weekend, books through ChatGPT, books that they don't really actually know the expertise on. And good reviews are going to tell people that this is a good book. So, Brenda, let's bring you into the conversation. Was there a particular challenge for you around this whole process of becoming an author?
For me, I think you finish writing the manuscript and you think you just did the hard part. You're like, whoo, I did it. And then you realize, no. Now you go through the phase where you start to hate your own book because you've read it so many times, you've edited it so many times. But I think the real challenge for me is the technical parts of it, all of the production parts of it. I always equate it to building a house. There are just so many little decisions and details and things you've got to remember before it can really be out there in the world. And every time it's a new challenge, and it's the part I dread. I'd rather do the writing and the marketing than the in-between part.
Good news is that there are people out there who will help you with that publication piece. And there's 2 options for people who are doing the indie route. One is something called assisted self-publishing, which a term I only learned this past year. And in lots of ways, there's not a lot of daylight for me between that and people who are hybrid publishers, because some of them are very similar. So these are people who have expertise and are going to guide you through the steps of publishing your book. Some hybrid publishers will actually take your book on as part of their imprint, which is a little bit more of like a traditional publisher route. So you have to be accepted. But if you're paying to get published, essentially you're getting assistance getting published. So you don't have to, these are details other people can worry about. And the bizbookpublishinghub.com is where you can find a lot of these amazing people. And I'm always happy to help folks out. So back to you, Brenda.
And they're invaluable. They're invaluable. I mean, I used people to help me with that part of the process because it's just not where I wanted to spend my time and energy and effort. Even then, you still need to do enough. You still need to be involved, but yeah, getting some other folks. I think the best part of writing more than one book is by the time you've written the first one, you know who some of your go-to people are. You know more, you know what kind of expertise you want to bring in, you know the kind of people you want to work with. I did what you suggested, Robbie. It was a hybrid publisher, but it was someone who published the book under their imprint. So it's pretty close to traditional publishing first time out, actually both times. And part of the reason was I liked their interior book designer. I didn't even know those people existed when I started this process, but I like the work they do. And the second book I wrote is a guided journal. So it had a little more attention to design on the inside. And that's why I leaned that direction. And on the third book, I'll probably bring in some new players. So
awesome. Hey, I'm going to shift gears a little bit, Julia. I'm going to throw you a curveball by asking you a question we haven't already asked, which is, I want to know what your most effective marketing strategy was that actually sold books. You've got a lot of books out there. Was there something you did that led to a spike in sales?
It was interesting because I was kind of looking over my sales data, and you want to kind of see, well, yeah, what was resulting in more sales? I mean, one thing that I did that got more people to just download the free version, the digital version of Beyond the Green Team was I had so this is the person who was my co-author for book 4, but he was already endorsing book 3. He has a much wider reach than I. And so I gave him a special coupon code to share with his community so that people could download the book. And I got 150 new people on my email list from that, and who, they downloaded the book. I don't know if they all read it. No, some of them told me they read it. In terms of sales, it's interesting because I've seen sometimes bumps with doing Amazon ads, but I also sometimes feel a little bit irritated that Amazon's making more money on this whole thing than I am, because I pay them for the ads and they get a take on every book sold on their site. So it I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way a little bit, but honestly, it does mean more books are getting sold. You know, more people are seeing the books. In terms of just numbers, bulk sales. So I had a situation, and some of that is just being out there on LinkedIn, because I am writing to a business audience, where somebody who was fairly high up in a position of authority in sustainability in a large company reached out to me because she had bought one of my books and said, I want to get a bunch for my employees. And then I ended up doing some consulting work with them. Mm-hmm. And so that was way more income than the little amounts I get on book sales every month.
Exactly. Okay. So a couple of things I'm going to pull from this that you just said. One is, the goal here is to get your book out into the world. So it's not really about the book itself, but when I think about how do you sell more books, usually it's then also tied to how do you make more money in other ways. So obviously bulk book sales as a consultant or a speaker is an awesome way to do it. And one thing people may not realize is that there are sometimes separate budgets for speaking and books. So while they may not have a huge budget for speaking, they may have a separate education fund, or they might have a sponsor who's willing to underwrite the sponsorship of books, but not give money for speaking because none of the speakers are being paid, kind of thing. And so it could work out really well for you and get your book into the right audience. So that's a really clever thing to do. I'm going to shift gears again and now ask about your business goals when writing the book and how clear you were. And I know that this kind of evolves as you get new books, but I'm kind of curious about, and I'm going to go to Brenda for this one. When you're first writing the book, did you have a sense of how it was going to turn, like track the right people? Everything that Biba was saying earlier about like knowing what the offer was afterwards and having that clear pathway. Were there lead magnets or links or bonus content in the book to like attract people to your email list? Basically, how much or little did you think about the book in relation to business strategy?
Well, I was a little crazy because the book was being published at the same time I was preparing for my TEDx talk, and also created a card deck by accident, a product. So I don't recommend this. I was doing those three things at the same time. So I don't think I was giving a whole lot of thought to it, except that I knew that the TEDx talk would help me leverage the book. And I look back and don't know how I did any of that. So much smarter the second time around, really knowing how to do all of the things you talked about: bulk sales, back of room sales, building the price of the book into the consulting proposal I do. So it's a presumptive, hey, and this includes 500 copies of the book for your team, and just building it in. And I don't even have to sell it. It's not a separate ask. So that's where I've had the most luck. But I wish I knew then what I know now.
Mm-hmm.
And the second book I've written is somewhat different. It's not really just for business folks. So the same strategies don't completely work, but some of them do.
Are there any lead magnets or bonus links in your book, Brenda?
And not in the book, but what I did do, Robbie, at one point is I put a book discussion guide up as a lead magnet. And then I realized it was so helpful that, because I want folks to be able to talk about the concepts. And so I went ahead and I published an updated version of the book and ended up embedding the discussion guide in the back of the book.
Mm-hmm. That is really smart. I know another author who did that. In fact, I had listened to the audiobook and then months later chose to bring it in for a book club discussion I was running. And I reached out to the author saying, do you have any discussion questions? And she said, yeah, they're in the book. Let me send you the PDF version. And I was like, oh, that's really handy. Because, when you listen to an audiobook, you don't capture the questions as well. So that's great. Julie, what about you? As you've been developing, you have such a niche audience as you've been developing each of these books. Has there been a clear pathway? It seems like you're getting some success with this, but is it starting to really clearly be like book to stage or book to consulting?
Well, it's an interesting thing because with Beyond the Green Team, it started as a research project where I was interviewing people. I was interviewing new sustainability leaders, marketing directors, and just getting their take on it. And the initial thing was it was going to be a report that was going to go out to them. And then somewhere along the lines, I realized, wait a minute, I could make this into a book. And that's what I did. So the honest truth is I did have an intention with a program that I was going to be launching to offer to businesses that is related to the book, and it talks about it in chapter 5. So I will now publicly say my business has shifted and evolved since then, and I didn't ever actually launch that thing. So it's a little bit sort of strange. There's one other thing about an assessment, which I have done, but it continues to shift and change. Now, Brenda, I have also done things like you have done where I have brought in books as part of a consulting package. When I'm coming into a company and I'm saying, I'm going to offer you an assessment that is leading to a content marketing strategy, and included are signed copies of these books. And those are yours to use however you wish. And so they appreciate it. They say, oh, thank you. I love having these books. Oh, and they'll say later, oh, I met with so-and-so for this purpose, and I gave them a copy of your book. I said, great, fantastic.
That's great. I love the idea of giving books also because people tend to not throw away books. So if you give them a postcard or a book mark or a business card, all those things are paper. And, when even if you're at a conference and you go back to your hotel room and you're getting ready to pack up, like you empty all your pockets and you're like, oh, look at this pile of paper. Like, what of this do I really need? And you leave the rest of it for the staff to clean up. But if someone gave you a book at that conference, you're going to take that book home. I don't know if you're going to read the book, but you're going to take the book home, and most likely it's going to end up somewhere on your desk or near your desk as a constant reminder. So that's why I think books are like really good for that purpose. Biba, how are you approaching your book writing and the business plan piece?
Well, I have really two ways to promote it. Is the first is on stage, to do a lot of public speaking. That's what I always recommend people to do, at least once a month, to do public speaking in person. Then you can do virtual, but in person, because people connect with you immediately, even if they don't know you, even they never heard of you before. And when you're on stage, people will go from your book to your premium prices. They don't need to go to the whole funnel and everything. So there's one part which means you will grow your business faster because you make more money faster. But then it's very important also to be online. And then from there, I offer like the first 2 chapters for free. Then I send them to a free call, and then to lead to the coaching. But speaking about the lead magnet that you mentioned, something that I learned after book number 5, it's actually, as you said, people check the book, but we don't know if they read the book. And statistics show that 80% of people don't even read a book until the end. So put your lead magnet at the beginning of the book and not at the end of the book, because the main action, call to action that you want them to have, it has to be at the very beginning of the book.
I actually did that on both the beginning and the end. So
yeah, I do both now too.
Yeah, because I'm going to cover all my bases. I'm going to do the beginning, and I actually have a little page that says read this first. And it talks about all the bonus resources they can get. And then it's the very last page that I have in here, which just says read this. And so it really is directing them to additional resources. Those resources, by the way I've set mine up is you don't have to have the book in order to get the resources. There's a different link. So that link in the book goes to a page that just tells them, here's how you download the resources, because there's no sales pitch. They already have the book. But then I have a marketing page, a landing page that's really telling you the benefits of this book and all that, and who endorsed it, and the screenshots of the orange ribbon and all that stuff. And that has an option that basically says, get the book and the bonus content. And when you click the button, it says, do you want to get the bonus content now? Or you can skip that and go right to Amazon. But if you opt in, you give me your email stuff, I email you, and then you still get sent to Amazon. So I'm just like, I want to get people engaged with me and with my email list. Is so key. Biba, did you have something to add?
And something that I noticed is when you sell it online, as I said, on stage, they go to the premium price. When it's online, they first go to the book and then your first price. And they have, most of the people go through all the funnel, but on stage, they go directly. So that's the reason why you have to pick one, or you do both. But you have to understand that you won't necessarily sell more books on stage, but you will bring more people, more clients very quickly, because they connect with you. And if they like you and they see that you have the solution for them, well, we don't have the filter of being on Facebook, on whatever, and then they have to see a gazillion of people to make the decision if they want to buy more. So that's what I really urge people to do public speaking. And the book is a great way you put your feet on the door and you say, hey, look, I'm an author. Then people look at you differently. And we go back to the credibility.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. Biba, I'm going to come back to you in a second to ask you what advice you have for someone who's writing a book to help them grow a business. Give me one specific thing. You may have mentioned already, but give me one specific thing. And we're going to first have a quick word from our sponsor. All right, Biba, back to you. Give me one crystal nugget that someone listening can act on in order to help them as they write a book to help them grow a business.
To have to know their goals before they write a book. What do they want to sell? What do they want to offer? Maybe it's not a coaching or it's not a program. I had a client who is retired, but she wants to help associations. So she's an artist and she wants to speak more about a painting and bring people to the association. But she didn't know, because I met her when she already have the book and she didn't know. So then we put the thing after. But when you know your goals before you start, you can put it in the book. And that's very important.
This 100%. And this is exactly what I work with people on. Brenda, I'm going to come to you. And advice you have, something specific for a writer who's growing their business. Oh, I apologize. We're going to try that again. Go ahead, Brenda.
Get a good coach who outlines the entire process for you and really helps you have that 2020 vision so that you start with the end in mind. Because there really are a lot of decision points there, strategic decision points. And I think as a new author, you don't even know what you don't know. You're sort of happening into something, learning about it along the way. But I had gotten some really good advice early on. Originally, I was going to write a different book as my first book. And 2 pieces of specific advice I got were, don't write, if that's the book you really want to write, don't write it yet. First of all, write a book completely tied to your expertise. It's where your credibility is. That's your first book. And you're going to learn a lot in your first book that will benefit your second and third book. And the minute you write your second or third book, it's going to boost sales of your first book. So having that wisdom was really helpful.
I love that. I was told that early on, that if you want to sell more of book 1, write book 2 and 3. That was definitely had that in my head. And, when we do this Kindle cross promotion campaign, which is how I know the 3 of you, and we'll be doing it again shortly around Black Friday, that has been a really cool way to see, one, all of my books are selling, but which one? I was like, oh, that's interesting that one had a bigger spike, units sold kind of thing. And so I wanted to remind all of you that if you're going to participate in that again, that is an excellent time to run a mini review campaign, because you're going to have your book discounted to 99 cents for like 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Because of course I ask you to do it really early, so I don't, go nuts as I'm trying to get 100 books organized. But that would be a really good reason to go and do a little mini campaign around that. Julia, back to you. We're closing this out with your advice for someone who's writing a book to help them grow their business. What would you share with them?
To focus on what you want to achieve with it, to also make sure that you write a good book that really provides some actual useful, insightful information to people and isn't just a masked 100-page advertisement for your services.
That's so good, right?
And if you're already a writer and you're good and comfortable with writing, great. Write it yourself and get feedback early. I put beta readers. I had groups of beta readers for all my books to give that real-time feedback. And these are ideally the kind of people who would be in your audience for your book, or who have specific expertise that is related to what you're talking about, so that they can kind of fact check things for you. And if you are not a writer, if that is not really what you want to do, then you can hire people to help you. But I also say, don't just have AI make a book for you, because I do not advise doing that.
Mm-mm. This is so good. Yeah, we have tons of ghostwriters at bizbookpublishinghub.com. We have writing coaches of all stripes. Some do retreats, virtual, in person. Some have online courses. Some have masterminds or coaching programs or weekly prompt groups, accountability groups. Getting the book out of your head is like the first step. And that can take a little bit. But being in a community of other writers is so helpful. So I want to encourage everyone to go to bizbookpublishinghub.com to find out when our next virtual networking event was going to be. And it's also where you'll see the show notes. And in the show notes, I'm going to put information about how to find this amazing panel. So starting with Julia, how can people find you and follow your work?
All right. Well, you can certainly find me on LinkedIn, Julia Freer Goldstein. You can take a look at my website, jlfgoldstein.com. That's for my business, JLFG Communications. And I love connecting with readers and learning more about your challenges and successes and how I can help.
Brilliant. Biba, how can people find you and follow your work?
Well, they can find me the same on Facebook and LinkedIn. They just have to look for Biba Pédron, and my website is bibapedron.com. And just to go to what Julia just mentioned for the AI, I tried a few months ago to write a book on AI because everybody said it's so great. I did it. I wrote 2 in 2 weeks. Those books, you will never see them published. That is not the same, not the same at all. So if you want to write something like not good and make some money, pocket money with a book, then that's the way to do it. But otherwise, you have to learn on your book. And important, you mentioned, Robin, what to do before, but what you do after is to remember that you have to promote it over and over and over, because in order to sell book 2, 3, and 1 again, if you don't speak about it, you don't sell it.
Brenda, how about you? How can we find you and follow your work? Brenda, we're going to give you back the mic. There you go.
You can find me on social media at Brenda K. Reynolds, Reynolds, just like the foil. And you can find me on my website, which talks about all of my services as well as products. And that's BrendaKReynolds.com.
We're going to have all those links and lots more links to all your social channels on the website at bizbookpublishinghub.com. I want to thank our guests for joining us again today and sharing about their author journey. Thanks, everyone.